Good evening. I'll order this April 2nd meeting of the Winston-Salem City Council and ask the City Secretary to call the roll, please.
Councilmember Larson.
Present.
Councilmember Clark.
Here.
Councilmember Bessie.
Here.
Councilmember Montgomery.
Here.
Councilmember Burke.
Here.
Councilmember Adams.
Here.
Councilmember McIntosh.
Here.
And Councilmember Taylor.
Present.
Tonight we're also celebrating Councilmember Adams' birthday, so happy birthday,
Hey, happy
Councilmember
birthday.
Adams. Certainly tonight we, as our normal practice, have a moment of silence, and tonight we certainly asked for thoughts and consideration of the family of Mr. McGuire, Mr. McRae, as well as Officer McGuire. Asked her to keep those in our thoughts and prayers. Thank you. Would you join the City Council and me in a moment of silence? A pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So excited about celebrating Councilmember Adams' birthday.
All excited.
Today, actually this morning, I, along with Councilmember Burke and Councilmember Taylor and other members of the City Council, participated in a press conference hosted by the Ministers' Conference of Winston-Salem and vicinity, as well as the NAACP. We were there for a number of reasons. One was and I personally offered the condolences of the City of Winston-Salem to Mr. McRae's family. I spoke to his sister today as well. We were there to make it clear that we will, as a city, be diligent in releasing all the information possible as soon as possible, basically as soon as the SBI and the district attorney complete their investigation, and assuming we are successful, including body cam video, assuming we can get a court order to do so, because as was pointed out today, the city cannot do that on our own without an order to court. Again, we also think of Officer McGuire and his family, and our thoughts are with him as well. We've had a very positive record of working with the community, as Councilmember Burke pointed out today. A similar situation not too long ago, and we asked for the public to be calm and patient with the community, city, the district attorney as this investigation was done, and it came out in the right way, and we're asking the same thing tonight and going forward, is that ask the community to give the SBI, the district attorney, an opportunity to finish the investigation. We're very proud of our police department and the work that they have done and continue to do to build trust and confidence within the community. And tonight we're asking that we continue to honor that. I've asked, as the city manager's asked Chief Thompson to be with us tonight, and I'd like to ask Chief Thompson if you would please come forward and make any comments that you would like as well, Chief.
Thank you, Mayor Joines, Mayor Pro Tem Burke, and members of City Council. On March 30th, 2018, at 10:34 p.m., Officer McGuire was on routine patrol in the 2200 block of Bowen Boulevard when he activated his issued body camera and initiated a traffic stop. The northbound vehicle stopped on Bowen Boulevard near the intersection with Douglas Hill Drive and was found to be occupied by 2 adult males and an adult female. As he approached the vehicle, Officer McGuire observed suspicious movement by the male seated in the right rear passenger area of the vehicle. The male was later identified as 60-year-old Edward Van McRae. Officer McGuire issued multiple verbal commands to Mr. McRae during the incident to stop reaching towards concealed area of the vehicle. Despite the commands, Mr. McRae continued his suspicious movements. Officer McRae immediately requested emergency backup police response to the scene and ordered Mr. McCray to exit the vehicle. After being removed from the vehicle, Mr. McCray physically struggled with Officer McGuire and refused multiple verbal commands by Officer McGuire to stop reaching. As the struggle continued, a handgun became visible to Officer McGuire. Officer McGuire issued multiple verbal commands to Mr. McCray, ordering him not to reach for the gun before Officer McGuire discharged his issued service weapon. Mr. McCray was incapacitated after the discharge of the officer's weapon. Officers responded to the scene within seconds and rendered CPR on Mr. McCray. Emergency medical services was also quickly responded and came to the scene to treat Mr. McCray. However, Mr. McCray was pronounced deceased on the scene. Officer McGuire received minor abrasions during the altercation with Mr. McCray. The other occupants of the vehicle were not injured during this incident. Following standard procedures, as been said, the North Carolina State Bureau of Investigations responded to the scene and assumed primary investigative role into the officer-involved shooting. As is standard practice, the Criminal Investigations Division will also be investigating the scene as well. The Criminal Investigations Division will handle the part of the investigation that involves the assault on the officer. Also, as is standard practice, an administrative investigation will be conducted by the Winston-Salem Police Department's Professional Standards Division. Officer D.E. McCray began his employment with the Winston-Salem Police Department in August of 2015 and is currently assigned to the Patrol Division as a patrol officer in Field Services Bureau. Following standard procedures, Officer McGuire has been placed on administrative duty until the investigations described above are completed. This is an active and ongoing investigation. I am again asking, as Mr. Mayor Joines has done so, to please keep in your thoughts and prayers the families of both Mr. McCray and of Officer McGuire. As your Chief of Police, I am asking for patience in allowing this investigation to take place. The Winston-Salem Police Department is cooperating fully with the North Carolina State Bureau of Investigations as well as our District Attorney's Office. It is our promise that we will be totally transparent and continue to be cooperative during this investigative process. Again, I'm asking for peace, calm, and patience. Winston-Salem is a great community. We're not like many other communities across the country. We work together and we strive to do what's right all the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Thompson. Thank you. Thank you. Very good. Tonight's agenda of the Winston-Salem City Council is comprised of the following items. We have 4 zoning petitions. Each of these items is listed for a public hearing, and when each public hearing is called, persons in the council chamber will be given an opportunity to speak. If no one wishes to speak, the public hearing will be closed and the City Council will consider the item. If there is opposition to the zoning petitions, the proponents and the opponents will each be given 15 minutes for presentations and 3 minutes for rebuttal. The meeting is being televised live tonight on TV 13, and it will be replayed tomorrow at 9 a.m. and again Wednesday at 9 p.m. Of course, copies of our agenda as well as videos of previous meetings are always available to the public at our website, and just click on the Watch City Council Meetings online. City Council, without objection, I'd like to recognize Councilmember Montgomery relative to item number 4 for a potential continuance. Councilmember Montgomery.
Mr. Mayor, if it'd be in order, I'd like to read a portion of email from the individuals, as this has been on the docket, to make sure public knows.
Sure. Let's read the item into the record, then we can do that.
Item Z4, public hearing on zoning petition of Burger King Corporation, W3344 from HB MLKO to HB, property located in the northwest corner of Martin Luther King Jr. Drive and 5th Street. located in the East Ward. Planning Board recommends approval of the petition. This item was continued from the November 6, 2017 and January 2, 2018 City Council meetings.
Councilor Montgomery.
Yes, this item has been continued a few times, and I just want to make sure that council and public are understanding what's happening, what's been going on with the project in its entirety. In essence, the franchise owners who own the Burger King franchise within the Winston-Salem market have had issues and challenges with the property owner, who is Burger King corporate office, which was procured by another company here in during last year, I believe. And as such, has caused some issues in terms of ownership of the property and previously agreed upon conditions. And so they continue to look for opportunities there. And this is a synopsis of conversation from Mr. Brogan from last week that we had, and I asked him to send it an email that we could have a record of that. And he simply says, good afternoon. Pursuant to our conversation earlier, I was in the Winston-Salem market last week exploring potential opportunities to offset the former BK location in the event BKC, which is Burger King Corporate, does not come around in the near term and agree to the terms previously discussed. As such, I would again ask that you hold off on the council action related to our former location. I anticipate engaging property owners we discussed, including the city, as alternatives. Thank you for your continued interest in our present, in your community, and in your district. And with that, I move to continue W3344 until August 6, 2018.
Is there a second?
Second.
We get a motion and a second to continue this item to August the 6th, 2018. Is that one going to be able to come up, or should? Yeah. All right, why don't we do this the old-fashioned way? All in favor of the motion to continue this to August 6th, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. That is unanimous. Thank you. We'll continue that. Thank you, Councilmember Montgomery. Councilmember Clark.
Just make a quick comment for folks. This isn't unique to Mr. Montgomery's ward. As best of my knowledge, all the Burger Kings in town have closed. I know the one out in University, which I believe is maybe in Miss Adams' ward, and I think there's one on Country Club in mine, or Jonestown. So there's obviously something going on a very fundamental basis, and they've got to work through all these issues.
Thank you, Clark. All right, now we go back to item Z1, please.
Item Z1, public hearing on zoning petition of First Tennessee Bank from LOS to LOS. Property located on the southeast corner of Rinalda Road and Locke Drive, located in the Northwest Ward. Planning Board recommends approval of the petition.
This is a public hearing. I know the petitioner is here, Mr. Dickey. If there's any questions, is there anyone in opposition to this proposed rezoning? All right, seeing no one, I'll declare the public hearing closed. I'd recognize Councilmember McIntosh.
I move for approval of 1W-3360, 2, the revised site plan, and 3, the statement of consistency for approval of said item.
Second.
Motion second. All right. Those in favor of this item, please indicate by the.
Just make a comment.
Oh, yes, go ahead, Councilmember.
I wanted to thank the applicant and also the neighborhood. There was an awful lot of outreach, a lot of time spent going over the sort of T's and Q's of this item. This actually is a downgrading of the intensity of use of the piece of land. So the neighborhood's happy about this, and I think the applicant is as well. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, all those in favor of this motion, please indicate by voting yes. Anyone opposed, vote no.
Aye.
All right, we're doing this the old-fashioned way tonight. All right, the motion passes unanimously. All right, thank you. Item Z2.
Item Z2, public hearing on zoning petition of Hunt Investments of North Carolina, LLC, from GI to HB, property located on the west side of Old Lexington Road, south of Sprag Street, located in the Southeast Ward. Planning Board recommends approval of petition.
Yeah, this is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the council chamber who wishes to be heard on this proposed rezoning? Seeing no one, I'll declare the public hearing closed, and I'll recognize Councilmember Taylor.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. If I may, just get a brief presentation from Mr.
Yes,
King, please.
Mr. Aaron King is representing the planning board tonight. Can we switch that over so he can make his presentation? There you go.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
This is a location map of the subject property. You can see it in yellow there. It is very small. It's about 0.05 of an acre, or about 2,100 square feet. It's on the west side of Old Lexington Road, just south of Sprag Street. It's zoned GI currently, and the request is to rezone this to HB Highway Business. and it's just to the north of that is the existing Speedway convenience store there. And the intent of this request, I think there's some redevelopment plans for that convenience store, and this would allow a little more flexibility on the backside of that property to correct the zoning in that area. A couple images. This is one of the subject property. You can see the red rezoning sign in the background there. This is taken from Old Lexington Road. And this is the existing convenience store there at the corner of Sprag and Old Lexington. And this is looking across Old Lexington. This is the Southeast Winston-Salem area plan, which shows the subject property in red there. Again, it's very hard to see given the size of the property, but it is recommended for commercial zoning. The request is consistent with the recommendations of the area plan. And as I mentioned before, it would more closely align that zoning boundary with the property lines to help facilitate redevelopment of the Speedway convenience store site. This did go to Planning Board on March 8th. There was no opposition at that time, and Planning Board recommended approval of this request.
Any questions for Mr. King? Thank you, Mr. King. Councilman Taylor?
Mayor, member of the council, I move for approval of this particular item. Well, let me read it into the record correctly. I move for approval of 1 W-3361 and 2 statement of the consistency for approval of the said item.
Is there a second?
Second.
A motion and second.
Comment.
Yes, Councilman Taylor.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say this has been highly anticipated from the people in the community. I've gotten a lot of questions about the Speedway. This particular rezoning process is necessary to sort of gather some real estate to redevelop this particular building to provide some much-needed economic and community development for that area. What will happen is there will be a completely new Speedway that's constructed there. There'll be completely new gas pumps, and I know the community is excited. I've gotten a lot of calls, a lot of emails. I think that, this has been a slow process, but sometimes the wheels of government turn slow, but nevertheless they do turn. So I'm excited the Speedway is doing this and putting some good development in our community, and I think this is going to be good for the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Taylor. Any other comments? All right, we do have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please indicate by voting yes. Anyone opposed, vote no. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councilman Taylor. Now, item Z3.
Item Z3, public hearing on a reduction of transmission tower setback requirements in an HB zoning district. Property is located off the west side of University Parkway, south of Bonhurst Drive in the Northwest Ward.
Thank you. This is a public hearing, but before we hold the public hearing, this is a quasi-judicial matter, which means that all those who wish to be heard on this item need to come forward and be sworn in at this time, including Mr. King. Thank you. Again, this is a quasi-judicial matter before the City Council. The difference in this particular case is that we only have to make one finding of fact as opposed to the 4 findings of fact that we're typically aware of. Before we do the public hearing, I might just ask Mr. King if you would to review the purpose of this particular item and what the City Council is being asked to do.
Correct. David Reed will actually be making a presentation on this one.
I'm sorry, David Reed is here, right there. Thank you, David.
Location map for the board. This case is different from the other tower cases you typically hear. They require special use permits in residential districts. This is allowed by right in the HB zoning district where it's located, as long as it meets all the requirements of the ordinance. This one does not meet 2 of the setback requirements, and therefore the UDO allows the elected body to approve the reduction of the transmission tower setback requirements if you find that the proposed setback fulfills the intent and purpose of the regulations. So I have another graphic for you to show you here, to show some of the situation here. The tower is proposed to be shown in kind of the upper right corner of this. They will need a 35-foot reduction from the property line to the northeast, and it shows they meet the 100-foot setback requirement from residential zoning to the west, and then they also need a 40-foot reduction from the public street to the west. So the 35-foot reduction is required because they have pushed the tower the full 100 feet away from the residential zoning line. By locating it that far away, they meet the residential setback, but they're forced to be closer to a property line, which is another business, and it's the rear parking lot of that business. The setback from the road is required to be the same distance as the height of the tower, and they're 40 foot short on that requirement. So with that, the applicant is here to present evidence on the case, and I'll try and answer any questions you have of me.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Reed. Let's hear from the public hearing. I'm going to call on Mr. Don Nielsen. Again, Mr. Nielsen, if you'd state your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, Your Honor. Don Nielsen, 100 North Cherry Street, Winston-Salem, 27101. And I'm with the law firm of Bell Davis & Pitt. I'm here on behalf of the applicant EcoSite. And as Mr. Reed indicated, EcoSite is seeking 2 setback reductions for a proposed monopole, which is in a highway business zone district about 250 feet off of University Parkway. And the site as proposed, it meets all the ordinance requirements except for the 2 setbacks. And again, that's all we are here for tonight, these 2 setbacks. And the site is tucked in toward the side and the back of the College Plaza Strip Shopping Center, closest to the Family Dollar, if you're familiar with that location. The setback reductions, as Mr. Reed said, it meets the setback reductions for the residential, and there were changes made which caused us to ask for this, which helped us meet the residential setbacks. But the setbacks are from an adjacent HB-zoned parking lot and from a little used roadway. The site will be well protected by a wooden fence. It'll have natural vegetation on several different directions, which will protect the visibility and protect the neighbors. The reduced setbacks will help keep the tower farther from residentially zoned property. It'll help reduce the visibility of the tower from adjacent property. And as will be explained in more detail, this request meets the ordinance requirement to fulfill the intent and the purposes of the ordinance, as well as strict conformance with the ordinance would do. Now, we understand that you have the application and Mr. Reed's staff report in your agenda packet. And since this is a quasi-judicial hearing, let me go through the formalities and respectfully request that the application, Mr. Reed's report and his presentation, and the PowerPoint presentation that we're about to give, if we could have that all be admitted into the record.
Yes, it will be.
Okay. Now, the PowerPoint presentation has been loaded by staff, but if we'd like a hard copy for the record, we can, Mr. Pennington can give that when he comes up. Would anybody like a hard copy of the PowerPoint presentation? Okay. Now, Mr. Pennington, Gary Pennington, he knows the particulars of the site. He's experienced in the communication tower industry. He prepared the PowerPoint presentation, and he is going to testify regarding the facts of the application. After he is done, we'll take any questions, and I'll make some concluding remarks.
Okay.
So,
Thank you,
Mr.
Mr.
Pennington.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I'm going to try to load this PowerPoint up if I can. Did you start the slideshow? Okay. My name is Gary Pennington, 530 Lady Street, 430, Columbia, South Carolina, 29201. Also here on behalf of EcoSite tonight. I've been working in the communications industry for about 25 years now, siting communications towers, and thank you for allowing me to come tonight to appear before you. Have a beautiful chamber here and a lovely city. So I'm going to start just by telling you a little bit about the property. Then I'm going to show you some pictures. I'm going to show you what the tower looks like and talk about the setbacks. So this particular property is at 2802 University Parkway. It's a large tract. It's 3.43 acres. It's owned by College Plaza Shopping Center, and it's presently fully developed as a retail shopping center. It's got it's a strip mall basically on University Parkway. the corner store closest to the tower site is a Family Dollar. It is zoned HB, and as was indicated earlier, towers are permitted by an administrative approval in the HB zoning districts. The only issue we have before us tonight is getting a reduction in the setbacks, which the ordinance does allow. Just to review the setbacks generally, the closest residentially zoned property, and I'll show you a survey in a minute, is zoned RM18. The tower is required to be set back a minimum of 100 feet. It does meet that requirement. The tower is approximately 195 feet to the closest residential structure. These structures are multifamily housing. They're condominiums, I think, they're not apartments. They've been there for quite some time. They're actually two different communities to the west of the site. They're separated by a fence. They have separate entrances as well. One of the good things about this particular location is that to the west and to the south of the site, there is existing trees that shield the view. These are cedar trees, so they keep their vegetation year-round. They vary from 12 inches in diameter to 18 inches in diameter. So the only two places where we fail to meet the setbacks are the adjacent property to the east, which is basically a parking lot, and then there's a restaurant on the front side, approximately 110 feet from the property line, and from the closest roadway, which the tower's required to be the height of the tower from the public right-of-way, and we're 40 feet short there. I'm going to show you some maps and pictures of the site and the surrounding area. That's sort of hard to see right there as it's lit up. Can we somehow do the lights? So this is, I'm having trouble seeing that myself this far away. Let me see if I can get the, oops. Yeah. So basically, as I get my bearings here, this is the golf course here. This is University Parkway here. These are the storage units. This is the restaurant in front of the site, and the actual site is here, tucked in that corner behind the existing retail. And the property line comes all the way down here.
I might just point out, we can't see what you're pointing to.
I know. Let's figure that out, too. I'm going to try to go in here. I think there is a...
Use the cursor.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to activate the... there is a way you can have a pin light on the PowerPoint as well. If someone more wiser than me knows how to do that, see.
Or just use your cursor.
You got the arrow.
Yeah, okay. So, let me get my bearings here. So basically the tower site's tucked in this little area here. These are the evergreen trees here, and the tower site's 20 feet off the back of the building and 5 feet off of the property line to the east, 100 feet from the road, 195 feet from the closest residential structure. This is just a copy of the tax map, just to give you an idea of the layout of the property there. This is the tower site is basically here in this area. Like I said, 20 feet and 5 feet. Carriage Drive is the closest public right-of-way, but at the property line, it actually ends. The public right-of-way ends here, and then it becomes a private drive, permitting access to these units. But there's a fence at the end of Carriage Drive that precludes anyone from the adjacent residential structures from driving through that area. This is just a zoning map to show you what the general zoning is in the area. You can see that this is our parcel here that's HB. You got RM18 here to the rear. And then obviously it's HB adjacent. I'll show that better in a minute. Here's some pictures of the site. The actual location of the site is typically in this general area right here. This is looking east towards University Parkway. This is the restaurant that's adjacent to it on the HB property. I've driven the property just today, and one of the things I wanted to point out is that on the westernmost side of the right-of-way of University Parkway, there exist, if you're standing at the tower site, you can actually see 3 of these Duke transmission towers that are steel. I don't know the exact height of them. but they're probably about the same height as this tower is going to be. And those run all along the right-of-way there. Those look to be rather new. This is looking towards the north. That's Carriage Drive coming down this road right away. You would turn in here and turn left into the site. This is looking south. This is towards the storage units. You can see the evergreen trees here. The tower site is actually back in this corner, tucked in this corner back over here. You can see once again, that's one of those Duke transmission towers along the right-of-way. This is looking west from the site, standing at the site, looking back towards the RM18 properties. These are the two-story RM18 residential structures to the west. We do meet the setbacks from them. These are the cedar trees that block the view. This is out on the front side of the retail center, looking back towards the west, towards the site in the parking lot. So the tower would basically be in this area here. This is the end of the private drive. Just as you pass the tower site to the left here, there's this fence there. And then there's another fence over here that's got barbed wire fence, coiled fencing along the top of the chain link fence to prevent access between the two properties. This is the access road. This is where the right-of-way of Carriage Drive ends. This is the back side of the retail center. The tower site is basically over here. It's a small little area that really is not available for use for any other type of development. This is a survey of the site, and the scale of this is a little bit small, so I'm going to go back to the... This is the lease area that EcoSite will have. It's about 60 by 60. This is the location of the tower. It's 20 feet off of the back of the building, 5 feet off of the eastern property line. This is the 100 feet shown from the actual property line, which is part of the private right-of-way as well. Here are the trees that I was demonstrating to you. It shows the location of the trees and the diameter of the trees. They give the natural shielding. This is another survey I had done just to show the distance between the property line of the actual property where the tower is going to go and the closest corner of this building. It's about 110 feet away. So there is a good bit of separation between the tower and that adjacent property. One of the things I'll point out as well is that this tower has been specifically designed to have what we call a fall zone of 40 feet. So in the unlikely event that the tower were to fail, that doesn't mean it's going to fall. It would basically buckle 40 feet from the top of the tower, so anything would be in a 40-foot radius. So in the event of a failure, it would never touch that building adjacent to it. And the distance from the tower to the public right-of-way here is about 250 feet. This is an image of what the tower will look like. It's a typical monopole tower, no guy wires. It's not a lattice tower. It won't be lighted. With the total appurtenances, the tower, when I say appurtenances, I mean the antennas on the top and the lightning rod. We're talking about a maximum height of 150 feet. This is the earlier drawing from staff. This is just an overview of the setbacks again. And this is the ordinance that gives City Council the ability to reduce the setbacks. And really, I think this is good legislation. I wish a lot of cities had this because a lot of times you have a good site, and this is a good site, but you can't meet the rigid setback requirements, so you have to go get a variance. Well, under North Carolina law, the standard for variance is very, very difficult to meet. So I think this is good because it gives City Council the ability to look at all the facts and circumstances and say, you know what, yes, this tower doesn't meet the absolute setback requirements, but it meets the intent of the ordinance. And that would be my argument to you here today. So these are the factors that are listed that council may consider. It doesn't have to make a finding of fact on all of these, just to make that clear. And then I've just gone through and discussed each of these. You know, there's nothing unique about the topography. in regard to the surrounding development plans. All of the property around there has already been developed. The existing property has already been developed. There is existing buffering there with the trees and the building and with the wood fence that will be put around the base of the tower. We do meet the setbacks from residential structures. We exceed them. We're 195 feet, only required to be 100 feet from the residentially zoned properties. We do have a vegetated tree canopy on that part of the property adjacent to the residences. In terms of visibility from the public right-of-way, we're 250 feet from University Parkway and 100 feet from Carriage Drive. The Carriage Drive is really like a private road. The only people who use it behind that strip mall are the people that live in that first multifamily housing unit. So there's not a lot of traffic on that road. And visibility will be limited by the existing vegetation. Other site development issues, there really aren't any. This is a unique location to put a tower in a commercial corridor behind an existing commercial use on HB zone property that typically will be less visible than towers might be in other areas.
Your time is up.
Okay.
Can you summarize very quickly? And then Mr. Nielsen, when you can come back on rebuttal if you like.
That's all I have. I'll defer to Mr. Nielsen at this point.
Okay, thank you. Now, is anyone in opposition to this particular finding here? All right, seeing no one, then Mr. Nielsen, I'll give you 3 minutes back on rebuttal if you would like, since there's no rebut. But
I will just state that again that the ordinance states that the setbacks may be approved upon a finding that the proposed setbacks, quote, fulfill the intent and purposes of the ordinance as well or better than would strict conformance with the requirements of the ordinance. And that's the single finding the council needs to make tonight. And based on the evidence and testimony presented, we would respectfully request approval of the proposed reduced setbacks. In sum, the site is in an excellent HB zoned location. It's protective of nearby property owners, and it will provide better wireless communication to a better part of Winston-Salem. And with that, we would ask for your approval. And if you have any questions for me or Mr. Pennington, we would be glad to take them.
thank you, Mr. Nielsen. Thank you very much. With that, then I will close the public hearing, and we've already had the staff report on this item, so I would recognize Councilmember McIntosh.
I've driven the site several times, and I do believe that the density of the vegetation behind it is a really good buffer between the residential area and this. And it's already a corridor where we have multiple very tall structures, transmission towers, as you said. So I've had no negativity from the neighbors, so I would support this.
All right, do you have?
I don't have
the motion there. I bet the attorney has one for you there.
Yeah, it is.
No, that was the other one. I move that based upon the application, testimony, and evidence presented at the public hearing, 1, City Council find that the proposed setbacks fulfill the intent and purposes of Section 2-5.79 of the Unified Development Ordinances as well or better than with strict conformance with the requirements of Section 2-5.79 of the Unified Development Ordinances. And 2, the City Council approved the request for a reduction of transmission tower setback requirements at 2802 University Parkway per the site plan submitted in the application.
Second.
Motion and second. Any questions, Councilmember Bessie?
Question of council. I just wanted to confirm our finding that the proposal meets alternative compliance in this case does not have precedential value for other cases, does it?
It does not.
All right, because I'm willing to defer to Councilmember McIntosh's judgment on this, but I wouldn't want a bunch of cases coming back with precisely this situation, or at least what they may care to represent as precisely this situation.
You judge each case on its basis, on
Very good.
merit.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions, comments? If not, we do have a motion and second. Those in favor, please indicate by voting yes. Those opposed, please indicate by voting no. Motion passes unanimously. Councilmember Burke did leave, but she was not excused, so her vote will be recorded as affirmative there. All right, Councilmember Clark, you have a quick announcement?
Next week are committee meetings. The Finance Committee will start 1/2 hour early at 4 o'clock. And the reason behind that is the city manager is going to be presenting his budget, and we needed as much time as we could. So please remember 4 o'clock on Monday. Thank you.
Very good. Councilor Montgomery? No, Councilor Montgomery doesn't have a comment. All right, does anybody have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion second to adjourn. All in favor of the motion to adjourn, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. There are none. We are adjourned.